Welcome to the 29th video in the Just In Case series sponsored by Equality, an OD consultancy firm based in Oxford, United Kingdom. We call it Just In Case is during this pandemic time when you are tired of looking at Zoom working and wants to refresh yourself and be reminded of something or learn something new to improve your practice. That's really why this series is made, just for that purpose. Today, we are joined again by Michael Quinn Patton, the founder of the 20th Century Program Evaluation and the creator of the Utilization-Focused Evaluation. Michael just spent 18 years on the faculty of the University of Minnesota and has formerly served as the president of the American Evaluation Association. His CV and profile is so impressive. But what I really want to introduce Michael is Michael has a heart not just about evaluation, but to help us to develop evaluative thinking so that wherever we go, we have that critical analysis. And that's including when we do evaluation, are we actually evaluating the really critical thing? And one of the critical thing, not one, maybe the most critical thing to Michael is the subject of sustainability. And so he is continue what the UN has passed, that all evaluation should really include sustainability. Today, this is a very, very critical video for all of us to know and learn about how do you begin to take sustainability as an issue, particular for the OD community, seriously in all that we do and work. So, Michael, thank you so much for your time, and over to you.
Well, one of the major developments of the last decade that comes from our research on evaluation itself, following up evaluations, finding out how they're used, finding out what their impacts are, has revealed that a major kind of impact that comes from engaging with evaluation is not just producing evaluation findings, but engaging people who participate in the evaluation in what we've come to call evaluative thinking. This means being able to think critically, being able to think creatively, being able to think inferentially, being able to interpret evidence and make sense of the evidence, being able to pose empirical and evaluative questions, being able to identify the values that are going to inform the interpretation of the data. This kind of evaluative thinking has a longer term and more enduring impact than actually conducting a particular evaluation. Any given evaluation report gets out of date fairly quickly, but the capacity to think evaluatively, to engage in astute situation analysis, to do needs assessment, to plan and design in accordance with situational analysis and needs assessment, to see the relationships between the things that go into an effort and the results of that effort, to seek unanticipated consequences and side effects. These ways of thinking evaluatively have a more lasting impact, and they move away from the findings as the primary outcome of evaluation to the use of findings in an astute and appropriate way as a major result of evaluations. A problem has been that evaluations have been treated as a compliance activity, as the strings that come with the money, as mandates that come from regulations and policies, rather than something that's actually useful. And so in our work with leaders, in community participants, in program staff, the idea that evaluation as a way of thinking will help you not only improve your effectiveness in whatever it is that you're doing, but also improve your capacity to make good decisions in your own ordinary life. Purchasing decisions, relationship decisions, how to engage with evidence. Now, we have a major example of this challenge with the global pandemic. the coronavirus. And a conflict has emerged between the political folks and the scientific folks in many parts of the world. And one of the themes that has emerged is follow the science. But the science is not always that clear. Science has to be interpreted. And so from an evaluation perspective, what we like to say is follow the science and apply evaluative thinking, because evaluation has the niche of integrating facts and values. The facts don't speak for themselves, and the facts are often probabilistic and uncertain and emergent and dynamic, and as has been the case with the pandemic, changing as more gets learned about the coronavirus. And so being able to interpret the data, apply it contextually, make comparisons, these are examples of evaluative thinking. That kind of thinking can be applied to the issues of equity and sustainability. Evaluation is fundamentally comparative. When we talk about does a program work, that's an overly simplistic question. The more nuanced question is what works for whom, in what ways, under what conditions, with what results. And that gets us into recognizing that no intervention works the same for everyone. Some benefit more, some benefit less. Some by design benefit more or less, some casually or as a side effect. Asking the question of what the differential effects are, what the disparities are, helps address those issues of equity. And so the categories that we use to compare things, the categories that we use to compare people, the categories that we use to compare initiatives, comparing cities around the coronavirus response, Seattle versus San Francisco versus Boston versus New York, Italy versus France versus Germany versus England. These are comparative ways of thinking that call on us to interpret data and the differences between the effects of COVID-19 on older people and younger people, those with pre-existing conditions and those who haven't. This challenge of having certain people be asymptomatic that makes it difficult to detect. Who has access to health resources? What we're finding is clearly, once again, that the coronavirus has hugely disparate effects and is increasing inequities because those who are poor and vulnerable have much higher rates of infection and much higher rates of death than those who are better off, who are nutritionally better off, who have better health care. Questions of sustainability become increasingly important. As the pandemic rages, the global climate emergency looms behind us. The Economist Journal had a cartoon showing a boxing match between a figure with the world on its head and a figure with the coronavirus on its head. And it was labeled the preliminary round. And looming over that boxing match was a much larger, gigantic figure with the global warming head and treating the pandemic as a dress rehearsal, as a preliminary round. And so evaluation has adopted, through its International Developmental Evaluation Association, a criterion that all evaluations should address equity and sustainability. The way in which evaluation then has an impact on these issues is by making the criterion a matter for judgment, a matter for data collection, a matter for interpretation. We say that what gets measured gets done. And so unless equity gets measured, nothing gets done about it. Unless sustainability gets measured, nothing gets done about it. By bringing forward these criteria at every level, from the local to the global, national, international, among organizations initiatives, projects, programs, making equity and sustainability universal evaluation criteria, taking them seriously, tracking them over time, is the way in which evaluation contributes to a more just and sustainable world. Just in case you've heard about it, global systems transformation, you may wonder what it is, why it matters, and how to evaluate it. I've been doing this work for nearly 5 decades now, and I've seen the issues in evaluation evolve over time as issues in the world evolve. We say that evaluation grew up in the projects with a project mentality, evaluating whether projects attain their goals. That led us to develop what are called logic models, identifying the causal linear connections from the inputs into a project to the outputs and outcomes and impacts, looking at criteria of effectiveness and efficiency. But over time, increasingly, we've learned that projects can be very successful, programs can be successful, organizations may be effective, but the problems that endure are located in systems. And that has moved people in planning and design and evaluation into systems thinking, and to realize that what systems transformation means is not accomplishing the outcomes of a project or a program, but changing the systems, transforming systems. In the last couple of years on the global stage, with the global climate emergency becoming more exacerbated, and now with the pandemic coronavirus, we are realizing that you can't just do projects. The world is going to have to face the need for systems transformation, fundamentally changing the interconnections, not just within a silo, but systems transformation means changing the interconnections between the economic realm, the political realm, health, agriculture, food, education, policy, culture, that these interlocking systems create results and outcomes and effects that are not equal, that are not sustainable. And so into that mix, as a way of thinking about transformation, we have generated what we're calling blue marble evaluation as a systems transformation approach. Blue marble refers to the iconic image of the Earth in the first photograph of the whole complete Earth, cloudless, taken in the Apollo mission in 1972, that was immediately dubbed the blue marble shot, showing the Earth without borders, without boundaries, all of humanity home on that one planet, the blue marble. And so what we're moving towards and what we're now experiencing with the global pandemic is a blue marble phenomenon affecting people all over the world, in every country, in every part of the world, as is climate change. And that means that systems at a global level need to be examined, are being examined, and that what happens nationally and locally is affected by what happens globally. What blue marble evaluation brings to that, the name of a book I've done by that name, is a set of principles for thinking globally, acting locally, evaluating the interactions between global and local, facing the realities of this new era we're in called the Anthropocene, the human era, where we as human beings are having more impact on the Earth's natural systems than nature itself, that we face the transformation challenges, and that evaluating at a systems transformation level involves different techniques, different tools, different ways of engaging, different methods than doing project evaluation. Blue marble evaluation then is taking a big picture, holistic perspective, zooming out to see how the context affects what's going on locally. And here again, certainly we are in the midst of a major illustration of how everything from the availability of masks, of ventilators, of protective gear, the ways in which epidemiologists are tracking the disease, testing for COVID-19, that these are global phenomena, that the blue marble and all of humanity is affected by these developments. And so blue marble evaluation is a new form of thinking big picture about the results for the whole world through interconnected global phenomena like climate change, like virulent infectious diseases, but the worldwide pollution of oceans, of the land, of the air, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, global disparities, more refugees in the world than at any time since World War II, a growing population, conflicts of different parts of the world. None of these issues can be addressed or solved at a nation state level. And so what we have to do is be able to think, act at a global level, act and think locally, and see the interconnections. Which brings us to not just the present, but the future. And so there are futurists working on scenarios for the future. Evaluators tend to be historians. When we do an evaluation, when we've produced a report, when we've completed an evaluation, it's automatically and instantly history. It's what's already happened. But the interconnection is that we share the same purpose. Evaluators look at the past in the hopes of extracting lessons and wisdom to affect the future. Futurists run scenarios and engage with thinking about possibilities and trends in the future in order to affect the present. What we're both trying to do, evaluators and futurists, is affect the present so that we affect the future. Every evaluation that has recommendations moves the evaluator from being a historian, what's already happened, to being a futurist. Recommendations require having some kind of frame about the future. And what futurists have learned is that the least likely scenario going forward is a straight line projection of the past. And yet historically, most evaluation recommendations assume a straight line projection of things in the future as they have been in the past. What we're learning with blue marble thinking is complex dynamic systems, the turbulence, uncertainty, nonlinearities, emergent phenomena in the world at the intersection between humans and nature mean that the least likely future scenario is a straight line projection of the past. And so evaluators and futurists working together can create flexible, adaptive mindsets, figure out what data to track, what trends to pay attention to, how to separate the signal from the noise together, so that we combine evaluative thinking, strategic thinking, futurist thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, towards blue marble thinking. We live at a time when we are the first generation to know that we are destroying the earth, and the last generation that can do anything about it. The time is running out. We are all in this together. And so across disciplines, across countries, across nationalities, across positions, from macro to micro, across our responsibilities, private sector, public sector, across NGOs, across governments, all in this together need to combine our energies and our thinking to address these major long-term global blue marble challenges. Blue marble evaluation is a part of entering in that engagement for a future. a future for our children and grandchildren, a future for humanity on the blue marble. Thank you.
On behalf of everybody, thank you, Michael, for that excellent and powerful explanation about evaluation and sustainability. The part that is sitting with me is how you say we are the first generation that experienced the horror of climate change, and yet we may not know we're the last generation that can stop that happen. That really brings chill to my bone. And I think that you want us as an evaluator, not just be a historian doing archive work. You want us to be a futuristic person using evaluation to project the type of future we want. And so this video actually shows us many, many scenarios of the future where we can partake in and make it happen. So we are the last generation that can stop this climate change happening. And so for those of you who are watching this video with me, I hope that it will evoke in us to do something differently. So thank you very much, Michael, for your time and your effort. And for everybody else, keep well, keep safe.